But we'll see who comes out on top between Les versus Botalz, and this is interesting. I said my Botalz typically is not an aggro player. What are the lists that he normally likes to bring? What is the big change up here for him?
Well, Botalz usually likes to play very slow, sometimes grindy, but also combo like decks. So he plays Seraph. Like we saw him play Seraph so many times in the Shadowverse Open, and I think this is one of the few or first weeks that he's not bringing it. Yeah. He's just like, you know what? I'm throwing it to the wayside. Let's get it out of here. Let's actually go with something else. And this makes him a little. It's like people couldn't have predicted that because he's always brought Seraph. So this makes him a little harder to read. A little harder.
Well, I think that's what Les aimed to do. He brought a triple aggro lineup against Botalz, which, typically speaking, that's what you want to be doing against slower people who play combo decks and, you know, decks like Seraph. But Botalz switched up the game. He's like, no, I'm playing aggro, okay? And maybe I have an easier matchup now, which I think he does. Had he had Seraph plus, you know, some random, I don't want to say janky, okay, Botalz, no disrespect, or a deck that just didn't seem like it was complete enough or had enough play testing done to it. I think Les might have just ran away with this game or this match in its entirety. But because Botalz brought the aggro, I think he has a really good shot.
Now, I want to actually bring up something in particular about a card that's in Les's hand right now, and that's Spiderweb Imp. In this particular matchup, Spiderweb Imp is an all-star. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
It is an all-star. So what I like to do is I don't like playing Spiderweb Imp 1-2 because it kind of feels wasted, right? I like waiting to when I'm going to like start flooding out with the cheap guy. So like say on my turn 4, and I, like in Les' case, he's going first, I can play the Spiderweb Imp along with the Blood Wheel. Now, like he can't do stuff with, he can't do like Bramble shenanigans to wipe my entire board because he's got to deal with the Spiderweb Imp. It's going to eat up at least 2 of his attacks. That is just, that is disgusting. I love Spiderweb Imp in this match.
Right. Any wards in general are good against Forest, but ones that you can play alongside other threats, like play your damage source, protect your damage source, all while being a ward, is just, it's perfect. And we're seeing Spiderweb Imp be adopted by pretty much every blood deck. This isn't just a staple in Vengeance Blood anymore. This is an aggro blood card. What Les is running is kind of like a mid-rangey aggro blood list with Diabolic Grains and Subwars and things like that, so it's a little different. But still, Spiderweb Imp is a go-to card. Even though it self-damages you, it is that powerful.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons that I think people are adopting this more, or rather Les is adopting this war control variation, that was just...
I'm sorry, that Elf Child may literally hit the worst target in play.
I say that was ouch.
Yeah. You can see it in Botalz right now. He's just like, come on, man.
Yeah. Yeah. But what I was going to say is one of the reasons that we see this more board-centric controlling style with Les is, I think, due to the fact that we are seeing a lot more boards. So cards like Sabrewer, cards like Diabolic Drain, Snarling Chains, you know, these things, they help with maintaining the board. And they're also really annoying threats to deal with, especially Sabrewer. Like, Forest trying to deal with a Sabrewer, like, they may as well just ignore it.
They don't. Yeah.
It's just ignore it. It's like, it's not even there. It's rough.
What's funny about Blood in its current state right now, I think Blood is actually the most flexible and versatile class of all classes right now. You can build control, you can build aggro in many different ways. You can build mid-range in many different ways. Like here we see an aggro deck that has an aggro early game, goes into a mid-rangey late game, and uses cards like Belphegor, but doesn't center on it, right? Doesn't jam with the, you know, Dark Air Jammers, doesn't do all that other crazy stuff. It's just, it uses these cards for value. And or we see other Vengeance Blood decks, and then we see Caraboss and Jormungand decks. It's all over the place, and all of them feel pretty decent right now.
Yeah, Jormungand feels, to me, incredible. And that was a sick turn, by the way.
Yeah, that's a lot of damage coming out of nowhere. You can still keep less out of Vengeance as well, which is really nice. Unfortunately, you can't use your Evo offensively if you want to do that, though.
Right. But Jormungand feels incredible right now to me. There's so many different ways you can play. And I remember there was a time where we were just, and by we, I mean, like, the community were just kind of like, well, what do we do with this card? Like, we wanted it to work, but what do we do? And now, I think this is like, we couldn't play it in the previous meta just because, well, PDK was so strong, and he's like, you would never have the opportunity. Now, things are just a little different, so you can actually do it.
I don't like that last play from Botalz right there. I think he went too tempered. I think this is actually showing a little bit of his inexperience with aggro decks. He could have gotten less down to 12, now 14 after the Savoir, and still cleared out that Baphomet and left the Savoir in play while extending his own game plan. Instead, he's like, I'm going to play a slower game plan now. I'm going to let you come back with your late game cards and things like that. And I feel like this is what's going to get him into trouble. Right. The longer you play this match, it's going to get worse and worse for you. You need to close the game out.
Well, he's in a pretty decent spot right now. I don't believe Lest is running any Hungering Hordes. Boy, what a blowout that would be. Right. Hungering Horde. Oh, man, talk about brutal.
And he put him into Vengeance. Botalz.
Yeah, that seems a little insane.
Oh, okay. So there are tech cards in here. Les has got everything in his deck. Never mind.
Yeah, so this list is... Oh, man, he's rocking Alucard?
Yeah, he's got them all in here. He's got the kitchen sink in this one. I like it.
Yeah, the smorgasbord blood. I love it.
That's what I'm saying about blood, though, right? Like, you can do anything you want with it, and it's still fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It always just feels fine because you have so much value. Life gain, storm, removal, early game, late game. It's got everything right now.
Yeah. Hey, and don't forget card draw, man. Don't forget card draw.
Of course. Of course.
One of the quintessential things of card games is card draw, man.
But we see both players taking very tempered approaches to this game, even less slowing down to clear every board.
Yeah,
and now I think this gives the onus right back to Botalz. I mean, Hyperia is a monster in this matchup. An absolute monster.
Yeah, see, we know that he's not running Rev, but in the event that he was, it wouldn't work anyway, because Liza just shut that down.
Right.
This feels a little rough. So he can play a Razor Claw, but he can hit face, but then he can't play a Marauda too. He can play the Snarling Chains, but the same problem presents, and he can't kill anything with the Snarling Chain. So this is really
difficult. Emeralda only. You have to.
Yeah, as it is really difficult, and this is a spot that's really tight to get around.
That was an insane draw.
What?
The second Beetle Warrior?
Bonkers. Okay, bonkers. 100%. Wow.
That almost put Botalz into lethal this turn.
Yeah. Yeah, Botalz is doing the victory dance, you know. Hey. Okay. And
we've got 8.
It's not lethal.
11 damage. It's not lethal.
Yeah, it's not.
We've got up to 12 damage.
But I believe he can live. He can live. Yeah, he can definitely live.
Can he?
It's gonna be hard. Yeah, he can live. He can. So.
Oh yeah, he has to full trade and not actually cast either of his spells.
Yeah.
Well, he can cast the Snarling Chains.
Yeah, and I would cast the Snarling Chains. 100%. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, this is scary, dude.
This is scary.
It's so scary, man.
Oh, there it is, goodness. Baby.
Oh my goodness. That is gas.
That's just like, all right.
All right, I'll take that L, man.
That's what I'm saying. Even with the tempered approach now that Botalz chose to use, his deck just like aggro force just seems so strong. Of course, he got that nice little top deck of a Beetle Warrior to kind of help him out there. But it just feels so strong. It's like hard to deal with Liza, Hyperia, Wood of Brambles. I mean, Airbound Barrage. Like all the cards just seem so good because they cost less than what your opponent's doing in an aggro matchup more often than not, right? Everything you're doing just costs less.
Yeah, this. Les is just like, okay, all right.
Whatever.
Okay.
Honestly,
Brush it off.
he had his back up against the wall as soon as he decided to play defensively himself and not start taking bigger chunks out of Botalz when he had the chance.
Time to get
Well,
started.
you live and you learn, man. We got a blood mirror.
It's
So,
funny
but-
watching two aggro players. Oh, well, I won't say aggro players. Two tempered players now find their way in aggro, and just watch how safely they play. It's interesting because normally, like when you watch a Pain or somebody like that, that just is an aggressive player, you just see them just go for it, right?
Right.
And more often than not, it works. And when you play these safe routes, it's a little bit more, you have to draw well in order to get there. But it's just interesting to watch these specific type of players get into aggro.
Well, I mean, you do need some experience with playing different deck types. You know, you come into an event, you're playing stuff that you may not necessarily be completely familiar with. At least not in Botalz is, you know, I don't really see him play aggro very much. I'm not saying that he hasn't played it before. Just
Of course.
generally, you know, just haven't seen it much. So
I just think it's something that you can take notes on. Like yesterday, we saw aggressive players be all out aggressive. Today, we're watching aggressive players be very safe and tempered. And you can go back and watch these games on both sides and figure out, okay, if I would have done this differently, or if I would have had this mindset instead this game, I could have actually won that game or something like that, right? So a lot of things to take in here if I'm a player, if I'm a viewer, if anyone, because of the difference in styles. I think it's great. I think it's great to watch.
well, Lest has, and when you're going second in this style of matchup, you got to play the control. You know, you got to keep the board clear.
Of course.
You,
Of course.
you got to.
And these Angel of the Word showing up, by the way. Being very good in all of the matchups that Les planned on playing today. Just looking really nice.
Yeah. Of course, unfortunately, that Angel of the Word is going to meet a horrible fate at that Night Horde. But
Yeah, Night Horde's pretty good.
going to meet a very horrible fate right now.
Again, a completely different blood deck than what Les is bringing, but just as good.
Yep. I just want to say, could you imagine how good like landing German Gun against Botalz' list would feel? Like, just in general, like you land it.
Amazing. You want to flood the board with bats every turn? Well, you've got a ticking clock. As soon as Jormungand dies, that's it for your game plan. Okay, so
Yeah. I'm just kind of thinking about that because I've been playing a lot of German Gun. So I was just like, man, I love this type of matchup. Love it. But here we're going to see Spiderweb Imp be Spiderweb Imp. Just a brick wall. Break through me, please.
So interesting choice that I see in Les' deck is he chose to play Bloodfed Flowerbed, but he is a player that chose not to bring Demonic Ram alongside of it, especially with the Spiderweb Imp and things like that, and I find that very interesting. I've been liking Demonic Ram a whole lot, and we've seen on stream how potent it can be.
Right.
It's interesting that you wouldn't include it now because of just that inherent great combo that you can get with Bloodfed.
It could just be based on the premise that he's chosen. The premise that he could have chosen is simply to use Bloodfed as a finisher rather than use it as a combo piece or something like that. So it could just be that. Unfortunately, though, I don't know how he's really going to deal with this board. I mean, he does have Angel of the Word. Yeah, he can Angel Word the Vania. He can Evo to trade, but he's leaving 5 damage on board with Evo. 6 with the Snarling Chain.
He's got the Snarling Chain too, so he can clear out an okay amount of this board.
So he'll leave. What is this? It's gonna be 4 damage.
Yep.
He's leaving
1, 2, 3 damage total, actually, with the Snarling Chains.
Wait.
So.
Well.
Oh, with the Evo, that's even
Evo
more.
point.
Okay, so we're at 5 damage.
5 damage. No, he's not killing him with that. That's for sure. So, yeah, he could actually. I would Evo 100% base.
Every
jam
time.
him, bottle. Jam
Every
him.
time. Again, we've touched on this before, but when you put blood down to 2 or 1, it shuts off a lot of cards that they can play. So it's always a good idea to do it if you can. Of course, in this situation, there is no other choice. But just to know. Ooh, gets the
look
drain.
at that diabolic drain and Botalz with the face of despair.
Oh no!
That's despair, baby. That's despair. When he's like, I got it on lock. I can't. Ugh, you drew a diabolic drain. No.
Why? Why you do this to me? All right, let's see if Bottles can top deck again. Let's go.
All right, sweet talking deck, man.
Ooh.
Well,
Ooh, close.
that's not it.
That's not it. And that's another drain. We've got
Another
Dark
drain.
Generals.
Oh my goodness, dude. Lest may as well just. He may as well. Bottles. That's the reaction. That's it right there.
This game's not over, though. This game's not over.
No, it's not over yet. He could draw a Razor Claw. Oh wait, no, he
Well,
can't.
no, Razor Claw's not an option anymore.
Look at that, and
The second Diabolic Drain, though.
got a second Diabolic Drain, put it out of range, and
Oh, man.
West is gonna take it. Wow,
Wow, what a game.
that was a game.
Less
That
playing
was a
those
game.
Belphegors, like you said, card draw gets you into those cards. That just,
Yeah,
wins
man.
the game.
Gotta play the draw, bro. Gotta play the card draw. Belphegor. Man.
Wow. All right. So now we get to see another just crazy aggressive matchup. Aggro Sword, full-on Aggro Sword versus full-on Aggro Blood. This is Bat Blood. This is old school aggro. I'm just trying to fill the board and attack your face. Let's see who gets to play. Let's see who starts off with the initiative here.
Now, okay. Now let's go backwards a little bit. Okay. And by that, let's talk about Aggro Sword. Now, last meta, or oh my goodness, like what is that? Like, come on, man. What is that? Like, okay.
That's a good hand right there, is what that is.
Yeah, that is what that is. So we saw Aggro Sword do incredibly well last format, and it was partly due to cards like Council of Card Knights, Ephemera, which have been since changed.
Right.
How do you feel about Aggro Sword now in comparison to its previous incarnation?
It does the same thing it always has as far as how much damage it can deal, minus the ephemera. So you don't have like the crazy, I just actually auto win this game. But it still has the same consistent damage it always has. It just doesn't have enough oomph to push into the late game anymore like it did because of Council of Card Knights being 6 costs instead of 5 now. So they're opting not to play it, which just means they don't have enough card advantage to push super late anymore. And that's really all. Everything else remains the same. It still has the same damage capabilities. It's still crazy good. It's always something to have on your radar.
Well, people are still running a roundtable assembly to get their double Juliets. Of course, Les won't be able to do that because he's drawing his. But we have been seeing that. And so, yeah, I do agree that the same level it does still have the same type of damage. That is a dead card, however. I mean, I guess it could still get one Juliet, though, because he's only played, he has the one in hand.
Not necessarily what you want to do, but might have to, depending. We'll see.
Paying 5 play points for was it the 3 play point card? And
Right.
that feels kind of rough.
Feels bad.
Yeah. Now that's actually something to talk about. Just imagine, like, I'm very curious to hear your input on this. If we got stacks cards.
Stacks.
Yeah, like, we make your costs more. We increase your cost of cards. So, like, let's say your card costs 1, your opponent's cards cost 1 more. Stuff like that. Imagine if Shadowverse.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. I think those cards are great. We're talking about things like Elta. They just prevent your opponent from doing something, or they make the game harder for your opponent.
Right. Stuff like that.
I think that would be awesome for the game. It's really hard to implement, of course, because it would essentially have effects for every class, right? Like what it actually entails. But I think doing things that your opponents have to play around is a very good thing for the game. Obviously, you can do something like Elta where you don't get full stats on Evo, and it has to be in play the whole time for its effect to work. It's really hard to get it to work, but when it is, we've seen how potent it can be, especially against a deck like Dragon, with Elta being the card we're talking about. So I would love to see more of that.
Yeah, please give me more. This is me begging for more cards like Elta. Okay, so side games, if you're listening, Can we have more ultra-light cards, please? Thank you.
Right.
This
Or
is
just like a two drop follower that says, you know, spells cost 1 more. You know,
Oh,
talk
boy.
about a D shift, you know, punt, you know what I mean? Something like that.
Oh boy. I mean, could you imagine your opponent gets their D shift all the way down to 0 and it still costs 1 because of that card? Like,
Right. They just like can't go off, or they can't really play around it very well. They have to
Right.
remove it first on their turn, whatever the case may be. Ooh, that was an insane card to draw. Lest
Call me short.
drawing
yeah.
ambush followers that cannot be readily dealt with.
And to make it worse, Botalz does have the ward, but we see the round table assembly in hand that can pull that last Juliet.
Yep. Prevo, perfect play here.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, and he's filling out the board. Love it. Now, Lest cannot assemble lethal. No pun intended on the fact that card's called round table assembly. But, ooh. That's interesting.
So here's something that just happened that we're witnessing. Botalz chose to fill up his board while not being able to present lethal. However, Lest isn't going to take the chance and deals with the bite here. Okay. But technically speaking, Lest could have locked him out of plays this turn if he wanted to.
That's the Botalz did the I'm dead. Like that's he did the I'm dead, you know. Yep. Wrap it up,
Womp
man.
womp.
Wrap it up.
Yep.
Yep.
This really just came down to the fact that Les had a very aggressive draw, drew the ambush followers exactly when he needed to.
Yep.
And had, if you look at his hand, the exact perfect amount of cards just to get lethal damage in, right? Maybe 1 over, and that's it.
Yep.
So Les taking that one.
There it is. Les takes the win, and the aggro mirror matches will come to an end here. That was some very, very intense face damage being taken here.
Yes. Yes.
Lots of face
damage. IFD, baby.
Not very good at drawing, but very good at going face.
Yeah.
That's basically what we just saw there. Let's.